Travel nursing can bring you to places you've never been before. Tell us your story.
Good morning. Good morning. It's Rita at the Travel Nurse Channel again. It's Tuesday. Happy to see you this week. And let me center this. Let's see. Okay, centered enough, I guess. I can go this way. No, this way. All right. Usually here every Tuesday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And let's come down here a little bit. And I'm a little tardy today, my bad. I just wasn't watching the clock close enough. And my hair was soaking wet and I was cold. So now it's dry and I'm all warmed up. So I apologize for being tardy. And what is it that nurses talk about? Yeah, salary is important, and information is very important for travelers, particularly going to a new place. If they can find a venue, if they can find other nurses and other companies to share information about where they're going, that's super helpful. I'm getting less and less centered. Let's try it this way. That's a little bit more centered. Anyway, so I just thought that was broad enough and interesting enough to talk about that, what nurses are talking about, and please let me open up this comment line, and please feel free. We're live right now on Facebook and YouTube, and then there are many archives with different topics that you can tune into and comment, and I'll get back to you. We are a conduit for nurses that travel and for those that employ nurses that travel, and not just nurses, but healthcare workers. So that would be therapists, technicians, physicians, nurses, nurse practitioners, PAs, RNs, LVNs, CNAs, CHHAs, all of the above. So we're a conduit so that those that employ those healthcare workers and nurses and those that are doing the work can have a place that is sort of safe and understanding and informative, and that's what the Nurse Channel is. Our sponsors are people that generally employ nurses or have something for nurses, whether it's nursing uniforms or nursing tools. We have, I think some of our sponsors are provide housing for travel nurses and financial advice for nurses and so forth. So that are different things in that world of nursing, and particularly travel nursing, that come up. And so we're hoping that this is a safe place for you to come and comment and look. You can, nurses, you can enter your profile. It's free. And if you happen to be an ultrasound tech or physical therapist, we're here for you too. And the employment opportunities are many. So so check it out. Check it out. Okay, I'm going to get a little closer. And maybe a little more centered. So one of the things that nurses talk about is the workplace. And something I see a lot of times travel nurses coming to me with, or emailing, or on other sites, they're like, oh, have you ever been here before? Do you think that it's appropriate for them to assign 7 patients on a telemetry unit and so forth? So those are really valid things. And if you can reach out, particularly before you head to an assignment, that's going to be super helpful. So I think the word team applies to nursing as well as travel nursing. And so I understand, excuse me, I understand nurses looking for that kind of information, and I think it's great and important to share it. There are things maybe that shouldn't be shared, and I go way back to the 1970s is when I became a nurse, in 1977 actually, and think of some of the things that I experienced as a young nurse in my 20s, and not having been new to the workplace. I worked since I was pretty little, and got paid, started getting paid like, oh my goodness, ridiculous, $1 a day or 75 cents an hour or whatever. I worked as a camp counselor for $1 a day. Can you imagine? And I think my mom used to give me $1 a day for lunch, and she never got paid back. So essentially it was a wash. I didn't get paid that summer I was a counselor. But my various jobs helped prepare me for the workplace, and some of them were sort of healthcare related. I remember working way too many hours. I was already a nursing student, and I had this job where I worked, I think it was like 11 to 7 on a Friday, then 3 to 11 on a Saturday, and then maybe another 3 to 11 on a Sunday. So I got all these shifts in over the weekend, and it was kind of a senior residence / memory care catch-all facility. And I never met a doctor. I did not work there long. It was very distressing to me. And everything was sort of distressing. It was haphazard. It was on a busy boulevard back in New York. And doors were supposed to be kept locked. So there was a front door and a back door, and it was a high rise. I'm not sure how many floors. My memory, it really was a long time ago. But so let's say it was 4 or 5 stories and housed maybe 80 or 90 clients. And some of them had some serious disabilities, not just being seniors, but having mobility issues or mental health issues, wound issues. And there really wasn't a lot of good healthcare going on there. They would give them, they didn't really have choices for meals. They'd get really watery soups and peanut butter sandwiches. That would be dinner. It just was a peculiar place to start. And of course, I was in Nursing 101, so safety and ADLs and skin, integrity and all of that was so important to me. And they had me pouring medicines into cups, and I didn't really know anything about the medicines I was pouring. So I didn't stay there very long because I was really concerned about my safety, physical safety, and just the whole integrity of the place. So that was back in the 1970s. Anyway, but I didn't talk to many people about that job, probably my mom. And it's a tender subject, and I always think you need to sleep on it if you have a concern, unless it's very, very obvious that something dangerous is happening in the workplace, and then you have to report it. But having an inkling, and that's what I had. I didn't have enough knowledge. I don't even honestly know what that facility was. It seemed like a residence. It wasn't a skilled nursing facility. It probably was some kind of adult living / mental health. But there were physical disabilities going on there. So, and I don't know what the rules were back in the 1970s, but at any rate, I didn't say anything super dangerous, and that I would have probably had to report, either to call and find out. I can't even remember who hired me. I remember an Irish woman really working hard. She was sort of a nurse, but I think she was probably a nurse aide or some kind of med nurse. I don't know. So I followed her a lot and got guidance from her. And I honestly can't even remember who hired me. So I wouldn't even have known who to report to. Boy, was I young. I was probably 18 or 19 or something. Anyway, but yeah, so talking about what you're experiencing and your workplace. So the facility that you work at, the hospital, the nursing home, the clinic, and so forth. If you have, this is an old rule that I learned growing up. If you have nothing nice to say, don't say anything. If you have a concern and you're sort of confused about it, is that appropriate? Should we be taking that many patients, or should we be logging this information and so forth? You know, we all know a lot about HIPAA, health insurance, portability, HIPAA, you know, confidentiality and so forth. So we know about that. We know we need to be careful and so forth. But what happens, I think, just because nurses need to vent, need to talk, they're so not overwhelmed, inundated with tasks, with concerns, with information, with patient care, with the many things that go into a day in the life of a nurse at work, that sometimes they're just kind of speaking out about things. And I think particularly as a traveler, but as any nurse, we have to be very, very careful about what we say about the workplace or other nurses or doctors or the facility, or what you think about it. I'm guilty of it. I know I've said, I don't understand who's making all these rules. You know, they didn't ask the nurse and so forth. So we really have to be careful. We really have to be careful. I know years ago, growing up, we were told we're not supposed to talk about politics, religion, or sex. And interesting subjects, right? Politics, religion, and sex. Great, broad, you know, everybody has opinions and ideas and beliefs and so forth. So, but they're touchy subjects, and people, you have to be careful. You don't know your audience necessarily. If you're a traveler working in a new facility, you probably want to keep it pretty professional. And if you are concerned or confused or disturbed or just something isn't quite right, you definitely want to sleep on it. I would recommend whatever it is that you not talk about it on the job, unless you have something absolute. You saw a nurse slap a patient, or you know, you saw something absolutely inappropriate, or push or knock or berate or something blatantly inappropriate, or you saw a nurse you know, taking meds, or you smelled alcohol, you know, something really, really clearly not okay in the workplace, then you have to immediately go to a supervisor and say, I have something to report. I'm sorry I have something serious to report, but I do need to report it, and then bring it to someone who can do something about it. Okay, so there's that. And I actually had that experience when I was on my first nursing job. Was a very big dialysis center. It was outpatient dialysis. Some of our patients were, most of our patients were mobile, but some of them had other disabilities, and some of them had just spent time in the hospital. Maybe they had issues with their fistula, their access, their other disease processes. So there were various states of wellness and illness. And one of the nurses that I worked with, and I probably worked with at least a dozen nurses at a time per shift. We dialyzed a lot of patients. This was one of the, back in the 1970s, 1977 actually. This was one of the first dialysis centers. It was huge, and we did 3 or 4 shifts a day. We started at about 5:36 in the morning and continued to dialyze till about 11 o'clock, 11:30 at night. So yeah, I think we had 3 or 4, what do we call it? Shifts of patients coming in for dialysis, coming in, getting on a machine, and then being dialyzed, getting off a machine, and then another set of patients would come in. And anyway, at any rate, there was something that occurred that I didn't know what to do about, and I only noticed it once or twice, and fortunately, nothing devastating occurred, and I'm not sure how that ended. I think that nurse, actually, I stopped seeing her, so maybe I wasn't the only one. Obviously, I was not a supervisor. I was a new nurse, and working with all these nurses and technicians for our dialysis machines. Oh, somebody's checking in. Agent, oh, this, I'll read this in a minute. It's pretty long one. So this nurse, very nice nurse, I liked her very much, and she was a little older than me. She had started working there before I had, and we got pretty good training. We got training, not full-time, but we got training, classroom training and on-the-job training for a solid week, and then continued to get more training for about 3 weeks. And it was very, very helpful, because I have to say I was in a very abbreviated nursing program, and we did not cover that much about kidney disease and dialysis treatment. So we learned a lot on that job. And so this nurse who had been there before me, I smelled alcohol on her breath. And I didn't see her stumble and fall. I didn't see her mumble. And I had some friends that I worked with, and a good friend that I had gone to nursing school. She's a great friend of mine. She's been on the channel before. Her name is Mary. And I discussed it with Mary. She hadn't noticed it. And then I noticed it a second time. And then I really slept on it. Again, I didn't see her falter or fall. I just could smell alcohol in her breath. And that's a problem. I mean, alcohol is legal, and if you like alcohol and it enhances your food and your life, you know, I'm not opposed to a cocktail, a glass of wine, or a beer, or whatever. It's the abuse of alcohol, and it's mind altering. I know on Super Bowl Sunday, I had a Bloody Mary. It was delicious, and I felt it in my system probably for a half an hour, and you know, you enjoy the conversation and you enjoy the feeling. It's when you have too much alcohol, or when you have alcohol when you're working, because it is mind altering and physically, you know, it can upset your balance. I mean, we know it can be an upper, it can be a downer. It's an unclassified drug, so it's not appropriate to drink at work. You're dealing with patients' lives. You're dealing with machinery and needles and medicines and blood. And anyway, so if I knew what I knew now back then, I would have gone to a supervisor and said, I am concerned, and I would have said dates. On Tuesday, February 15th, while working with Mrs. So-and-so, nurse so-and-so, I smelled alcohol in her breath. She didn't have bloodshot eyes. She didn't stumble and mumble, but I am concerned I did smell alcohol in her breath. And then I previously had the same experience on Friday, you know, February 11th or whatever. So I would go to my supervisor with information, make a report, and, you know, just have to brave it out, because I didn't want to ruin that nurse's career or speak ill of her, but I would have to speak up as an advocate for patients. So that's what I know now, but I didn't know it at the time. And so the point I'm trying to make, my long-winded point, is that really, really understand what is disturbing to you, concerning to you, confusing to you, really digest it and try to focus on facts. And you're at a facility, it is a healthcare facility, and probably with fairly high standards, but you see something that doesn't click with you, doesn't seem appropriate. Maybe it has to do with patient-nurse patient ratio. Maybe it has to do with faulty equipment. Maybe it has to do with employees, supervisors, whatever. It's not something to rant and rave about arbitrarily, particularly in the workplace, particularly with people you may not know that well, like staff. But it is something that you should give some thought to, because it may be, there may be something, there may be a reason where you're having your gut reaction, I'm poking my stomach right now, why you have your concerns. Now let me see what I am seeing here. This is StreamYard. This is not Zoom. It's like a Zoom, and it's like some other tools that we use for broadcasting, but this is StreamYard, and I've been really happy with StreamYard. And so StreamYard says live viewer comments show up on StreamYard, and they give me an example, and they say click for a comment. So here's one of the comments that just came in 5 minutes ago. Aging workforce like the population they serve. Travel nurse channels. Well, yeah, aging, right? I have all these wisdom hairs. Aging workforce like the population they serve. The nursing workforce is also aging. There are currently approximately 1 million registered nurses older than 50 years, meaning 1/3 of the workforce could be at retirement age in the next 10 to 15 years. This number includes nursing faculty, and that presents its own unique problem. We've talked about that in the past. Training more nurses with fewer resources. Nursing faculty are experiencing a shortage, which leads to enrollment limitations, limiting the number of nurses. And that is that vicious cycle. Many young people I know a orthotech who has been very interested in getting his nursing degree, and it's taking quite a while. There are waiting lists, the classrooms are impacted, and so forth. So that's one issue. Oh, going offline because I need a Kleenex. My itch is turning into a sneeze. Sorry about that. So yeah, thanks for that comment. And that is very, very well stated comment. And thank you for tuning into the Nurse Channel. Travel Nurse Channel is here for nurses that travel, for any nurses out there, be you an LVN, a CNA, an RN, a nurse prac. You might be a technician or a therapist. You could be a physical therapist, an occupational therapist, a CODA, a certified occupational therapy assistant, an ultrasound tech, a doc, a specialty doc, a cardiologist, a nephrologist, a neurologist. We're here. We're here. We want to connect with everybody out there, all of the wonderful, heroic people that keep us well, and the surgeons and the nurses and so many the MAs, the clinic staff. You really rock, and we're here for you. And you can all send your profile to the Travel Nurse Channel. We're at www.travelnursechannel.com, and you could go to our website and find out more about us. And if you want your profile on there, if you just want to kind of browse around and see what kind of jobs in there, what people are saying, what kind of ads are on there, please, I welcome you to do that. We're talking about the things that nurses talk about. I mean, we talk about our dogs and our cars and our families and so forth, and that's great lunch table conversation, but we really, I think, my point for today was that we really need to self-evaluate and take a moment before we make broad statements about the facility we're working at, or a facility we may have worked at, or we're considering working at, because rumors and inappropriate comments have a lasting effect. You know, what you say matters, and I would I just strongly urge everybody to sleep on it. You know, take a moment, take a day or a night or whatever to ruminate on things that you've seen or heard or concerned about. You may have heard something and it is a rumor. So you certainly don't want to act on something you overheard or heard without knowledge, right? So there are many sites out there in addition to my Travel Nurse channel. They invite people. They're there. There are other travel companies with the word travel in their name. They're not travel companies. They're travel blogs and resources. And there's one I read recently. I think it's called Angela, Nurse Angela. I thought this is great. It's great. I'll follow it now because I think it's a wonderful idea and maybe something I can get behind. I don't know. But let's see if I can find it. Angela. See if I can find it. But the gist of it was like a nurse, Gypsy Nurse. That's another one that I follow. It's nurses just sharing, like a travel nurse. Okay, let's see. A travel nurse took a picture of what's the name of it? She took a picture of a little battery operated thermometer. I probably have one in my drawer, and it's a digital thermometer. Gosh, I can't zoom. I can't remember the name of the company. If I said it, I bet you would recognize it. And so lots of people commented, which was really helpful. Let me see if it's in the comments. I'm just not kidding. Okay, so she's curious. She's took a picture of this thermometer, and she says, I'm on contract in an ICU. This is what the hospital is using for temperatures. I'm not even sure what to say. Has anyone else seen a hospital use these for patient care, let alone an ICU? So she didn't think it was a sophisticated enough thermometer. But people came back saying absolutely. Well, one nurse said, you know, I work in an ICU and they were used there, but the majority were on patients that were intubated in the ICU, that they would just put a temp in the Foley so they could take temperature there that way. But a lot of people said absolutely this is what they've been using since COVID, because they're individual, and then when the patient is discharged, God willing, they go home with it. And that whatever the name of the company is, let's see if I can get it here. Oh, I don't remember the name of it. Darn it. But patients can go home on discharge with these personal thermometers, and they work absolutely fine. So just because it looks simple and it looks like something you might have in your home doesn't mean it's bad, right? So that kind of sharing is great. Wet my whistle a little bit. So yeah, there's that. Oh my gosh. So what else do nurses talk about? They talk about the money they make, and some people respond, and sometimes they respond in detail. And some nurses are angry. Some nurses are touched. It's been tough. It's been tough times. Let's see if I pull up something here that would interest you. What shoes are you guys wearing? The conditions have me on my feet running for 11 hours, and my feet never seem to have been so sore before. So some nurses would comment on what they're wearing. Let's see. Danskos, yeah, Danskos. They're not pretty, but they're comfy. Somebody else say, try Zero Rise or barefoot shoes, not the ones with individual 5 toes. I've tried most of the brands mentioned and spent a lot of money. Some wait, tried some Within Zero Rise, $40. Love them. Oh, Witten, Whitin. Somebody's recommending that shoe. So that's nice. That's great stuff. It just depends on your foot too. And sometimes the Good Feet store, is that the name of it? Or Roadrunner, they'll do an evaluation. And I know that's all gimmicky and stuff, but some of those salespeople really know about feet and can, you try on 2 or 3 and you'll know when you put a pair on that that's the right one for your foot. So for me, Sauconys, they're expensive, and there's many Sauconys, but the particular, I don't even know. I better keep it. They're pretty run down already because I wore them at a lake in the mud and blah, 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 and I broke them in hard and fast, but that particular style of Saucony sneaker was the best one for me. I know some people, I see them wearing, what are those sort of plastic rubbery shoes? They are very comfortable for them, but I never went there. A trick for me was, yes, have a good pair of shoes or a good pair of sneakers, supportive sneakers. But another thing to do is to change. So when you're having a long shift and you really are on your feet the majority of the day, a good thing to do is to change your socks or change your shoes. Maybe you started with support hose, maybe take them off and put cotton socks on, or maybe you started with a harder heel, switch to a softer heel or a softer insole, so that you just sort of, and then of course, sit for 10 or 15 minutes, maybe put your feet up. That would be nice. So all of those things are helpful. And stretching is helpful for your feet. So many, many things that you can share and you can talk about. But my recommendation for sure is to keep it professional in the workplace, and certainly keep in mind your HIPAA, health insurance, portability, and oh boy, I don't have my acronym down, but it really is about patient privacy. And so you don't get on an elevator with another nurse or some coworker and start saying, oh, Mr. Joe Smith, boy, he's really rowdy and his wound looks like such and such. Absolutely not. It's like, how are you today? What are you doing this weekend? Keep it very light. Keep it private. People's privacy is very important. And if you have concerns or disturbances and things, even accidents that concerned you, maybe safety, maybe the cleaning staff left wet areas in the hallway or in a patient room. There's really appropriate ways to deal with it. First thing you do, you see a wet spot, throw something down, a towel or something, do what you can. If there are patients moving in that area, say, stay out of the area, there's something on the ground, I don't want anybody to get hurt, and deal with it. Deal with it as best you can. Maybe put a chair over it, do what you can, and seek some assistance with whatever problem you need to deal with. You don't automatically see a wet spot on the floor and go, oh, this hospital, they don't know what they're doing, there's safety issues, and you start berating a facility that should be professional, that people should have trust and faith in. So I think I just wanted to bring up that subject, and if you have comments, please, ready, willing, and able to communicate with you at the Travel Nurse Channel. My email is Rita, R-I-T-A, at travelnursechannel.com. You can call anytime, 800-737-6518. And you can go to our website and you can comment there. You can freely load up your profile if you're interested in traveling. There are lots of sponsors and clients there looking for great great travel staff. One thing I want to say again, because last month, the daughter of a friend of my mom's had a real concern about her friend Dave. He has MS. He was a social worker. It's a progressive disease, a degenerative disease, and he had a wonderful aide that had COVID, and so he was really struggling to get help. And if you are in the San Diego area, downtown San Diego, he is looking for help. If you want to call the Nurse Channel or go to the website, if you're an LVN, a CNA, an RN, any of the above, and you have experience with patients with MS or home health care, there's a big need. There's a big need. And that's just a personal shout out for somebody that came to me with that need. And we did do some blasts, some email and text blasts. So if you got them and you're thinking about it, please, it's still a need. Get in touch with us. So what else? What else? So we've got a few minutes. I'm not hearing from anybody. You're probably all busy. But yeah, whatever you want to talk about, we can talk about. And today we talked about what's okay to talk about, what's not okay to talk about. So, and also, I think with social media, it's like being on the phone. I said years ago when I employed a lot of nurses for per diem jobs, and my staff were constantly talking to clients at the hospitals that needed nurses and nurses that were busy or tired or whatever. And sometimes on the phone where you don't see anybody and they're not understanding you and you've had a problem, it's easy to escalate, and rudeness occurs and cussing occurs and impatience occurs and so forth. And I always said to my staff, take it with a pinch of salt. Everybody has a bad Tuesday from time to time. But if somebody is really out of control, they had a bad experience at the hospital, they had a run-in with another nurse or a doctor or whatever, just say, just a moment. That's what the hold button is for. So you collect yourself, you come back calmly, and then you say, Joe or Jane or whoever you're talking to, I'm sorry you're so upset. I truly am, but I can't have you cursing and yelling. How can I help you? Who can I direct you to? What is it that you need? But you can't allow them to be inappropriate, okay? So somebody has to be the professional, and I hope it'll be you. Okay, folks, thanks so much for tuning in. This is Rita at the Travel Nurse Channel. I'll be back Tuesday. I'm always looking for guests. If you want to be a guest on the show, please, please let me know. I am talking to some authors, talking to someone at hospice. There's so many areas that we can explore. COVID is one of them. Finances is another one. Best job ever, worst job ever. So what we learn from your experiences and we want to share. So call us sometime or check in, particularly when we're live, which is Tuesdays from 10 to 11 Pacific Standard Time. Thanks so much. I'm going to sign off with my little cute little nurse on the sidecar. Thank you.
Travel nursing can bring you to places you've never been before. Tell us your story.